Good afternoon from Italy, from Potenza, from the campus of University of Basilicata. We are here, a few friends and colleagues, for this first workshop of the project thematic. I would like to welcome all those that are connected in this moment. I would like to recommend everybody among the participants and among the speakers to tell me if they can hear or can see me correctly, just writing down in the chat. Perfect. So here in person, I have the pleasure to welcome Professor Giovanni Carlo di Renzo, that will welcome the participants. He is the director of the School of Agricultural, Forestry and Food Sciences. Almost complete. The name is quite long. And Dr. Francesco Genovese, Piero Smaldone, and I will try to show to you Dr. Maria Rosaria Belviso, the financial manager, Giuseppe Peluso, in the staff of the thematic, and an officer of the regional agency for tourism development of Basilicata, and Antonio Nicoletti, the director of the agency of the same agency. So, given that we have a strictly controlled timing of this meeting, I will give the floor for a few words to Giancarlo.
Buonasera. Buonasera a tutti, faccio la cavia e verifico la traduzione. Il sistema.
Good evening, everybody. Let's make a quick check. Is it working in English too? Is the English translation coming through loud and clear? Yes? Can you all hear? 1, 2, 3 testing. Can you just give a sign? Easy. Just give me a sign. All right. All right, let me take the opportunity of having simultaneous translation and speak Italian. Well, I'm very sorry not to be able to welcome you here at our head office, and I hope we will soon be able to do it. It is a pleasure for me to be here, and I'd like to thank Professor Perretti for organizing it, while he was the leading actor in organizing these events in phase 2 of the COVID emergency. Well, at least this gives an appearance of normality again. We are here with many colleagues from different areas, but all sharing the same kind of issues. And I'm sure that this discussion, this meeting, will help us work out solutions that our school too will be able to apply. Our school, a school for agricultural studies, is strongly connected to the community. And that strong connection with the community actually makes us more aware of how things are going. Well, of course, agriculture, the sector of agriculture has been slowing down too, but not as strongly as tourism. In the region of Basilicata, tourism is, of course, closely connected to agriculture, especially in tourist areas. We have over 200 companies in the tourist sector. And therefore, very often, the profits of one sector compensate for the losses of another one, and vice versa. Of course, that's a resource for all farming businesses, but also for all the food businesses, fruit and vegetables, well, whatever is related to the supply of goods and services. Goods and services for tourist companies that, of course, play a very important role in tourism, especially in areas with major tourist sites and attractions. So we are going to listen to you very attentively, and will capitalize on the experience you gathered in your own countries, so that through a new path that we're about to shape up, we can be more successful in tackling this crisis. And I hope we'll soon be able to meet here in person in Potenza. Thank you very much.
And now I will be giving the floor to Miss Stella from Matera, because this we were quite ambitious in the organization of this meeting. We decided to have 2 physical venues, and we will have more than 2 in the other countries. And we will, so we have a physical venue in Matera, where we have some of the speakers. The Matera venue of this international meeting is hosted in the facilities of the Municipality of Matera. So I will give now the floor to Mariella Stella, that is moderating the meeting from Matera.
Grazie e saluti a tutti. Noi siamo molto felici di essere parte di questo progetto.
Thank you very much. We're very, very happy to participate in this project, and Head of Department Dimona will soon be here, and of course greet you on behalf of the mayor, and then making his contribution together with Ms. Minardi. Well, here with us we have some representatives of the most hardly hit companies by the recession, and of course we're all very eager to listen to the contributions of all the other participants. I'm sure we'll learn a lot from them. The head of department is on his way. Exactly, here she is. So let me give her the floor, and then I'll be back with you. Can you all hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the whole administration. I'm here representing the mayor, and of course I'd like to greet you on his behalf. Well, obviously, we were immensely happy to participate at this table because we want to learn, and because of all the internal and external reasons, let's say, that, of course, can increase our interest and, of course, involvement to achieve better results, to be more successful, and to enrich all of us. An area like ours, well, in addition, of course, to giving our contribution, we are very much interested in learning from the others and be able to grow into broader areas of action. I'll be present, I'll be participating too this afternoon, and I hope I'll be able to give a contribution to our own contribution, offering our experience in the past few months, and you knew that everything had to be closed down. So I'd like to greet all of you on behalf of the mayor, and then we'll talk to you later.
Later in the afternoon about the experience, I should also thank Ms. Dimona, because she was one of the stakeholders interviewed, and I should say she gave a very interesting contribution to the report. So I will try to introduce now the debate, the discussion. As we know, in this afternoon we will present to the public, to the stakeholders, the report we prepared in the last 2 months. I mean the partners of the thematic project. I will. Why this report? We had the bad luck to start our projects in the same moment when the worst of the crisis was developing in Italy. Legally, the project started a few days before the complete lockdown of the country. And since the beginning, we all understood that the tourist sector and the cultural tourism in particular, because all cinema, theater, all kind of public performance were completely blocked. This sector was badly damaged. Since the beginning, it was very clear that the sector was going to suffer one of the worst crises in the last century. So, and the second problem we immediately saw as partners of thematic was that it is very difficult to make forecasts about what will happen, and even more difficult to prepare recipes, to prepare strategy, to create strategies for the restart of this sector. So we decided to hear the stakeholders, to hear those that are in the best position in this moment to see what is happening. So we performed a certain number of interviews. All partners in the 6 countries performed some interviews, and we then summarized these results in an analysis. That we had 2 main scopes for this study. First was that to understand the damage. I should say I was admiring and a little bit skeptic about experts, technicians that from day one they already knew what was happening, and they already knew what we had to do for the future. This is not our case. We know very little. We still know very little, but we are starting to understand something. So we will try today with the presentation of all partners. First of all, to understand what is the damage. We already understood that we have a supply and demand shock. Regarding supply, unfortunately now, we understood that, and also regarding the demand, we understood that we have 2 different aspects. We have an immediate damage due to disruption. A semester it's enough to say that Lufthansa, that was one of the most powerful companies, also from the financial point of view, is now on the edge of bankrupt because of these 3 months of crisis. So we have an immediate damage, but also we have a long-term damage, a loss, a permanent loss of production capacity. We tried to understand what is the nature of this permanent loss, and we could see that there is a quite strong heterogeneity in these losses. Paradoxically, we have the most successful destination in cultural tourism in this moment that are suffering the worst. The example of Matera, I leave it to Ms. Dimona, to Mr. Nicoletti, that know 10 times better than me. But we have many of the most successful destinations that not only have an immediate damage, but also have a permanent damage, because the level of congestion that were possible until 4 months ago will become impossible for such a long time that in economical terms we can call it permanent. So then we have discussed with the stakeholders about some of the measures that could lead to the restart of the sector. And we ended in some very practical issues. Just to make an example, we have been discussing of what could represent vouchers for the demand. We have this very difficult issue at European level, the impossibility for many companies to return the payments for reservations, but at the same time, the risk that transforming this reimbursement in vouchers, not money, just obligations to provide the service in the later in the future, could disrupt the trust of consumers. That is one of the fundamental pillars for the touristic sector. Then I will just mention another issue that was discussed. The issue of the dilemma between the domestic tourism and safe corridors, to move to a more local tourism, or to choose the scenario to try to restart tourism through restart international tourism. Also in this there are pros and cons that should be considered, and for the cultural system these are some of the most difficult issues. So I will stop here. Many more is in the report that was produced thanks to the contribution of all partners, and I will move to the first. I'm happy I am back on the schedule of the seminar. I will move to the first presentation by Mr. Svetislav Pantić, that will tell us about these issues related to the region of Nice, to the city of Nice, the area of Nice that is a beautiful area in the south of Serbia. So I am now giving the floor. This is also a technical message to the speakers, to Mr. Svetislav. Please, to the participants, feel free to ask questions or to write comments in the chat channel, and I will reply if not, and I will speak to you if not now, but for sure later, also through email. So the floor is to Mr. Svetislav for his presentation. The technical important, the technical assistance is reminding me that you can also write your comments in Italian if you want, because or also in other languages, because there is an automatic, not perfect, but useful translation also of the chat. Okay, so now the floor is to Panta.
Good day to everyone. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I will just speak about a few points that happened during this period with the starting of our analysis of the situation in touristic sector. First, research began some 2 months ago, and at that time, approximately there was the downfall of the first wave of coronavirus spreading in Serbia. At that time, we spoke with some stakeholders from different areas of tourism sector, and they had their opinion of that time. As I previously said, it was like a slight downfall of coronavirus spreading in Serbia. So most of the stakeholders expected that some recovery of the tourist sector will begin at the second half of this year. At that time, at the same time, the government started some support program that predicts some 3 months support for salaries and for the salaries of the employees in the tourist sector and all the other employees. But stakeholders requested prolonged support for the employees in the tourist sector, which was not possible. Some other measures was also applied by the government. At that time, the most hit were hotels, restaurants, and especially the thematic tourism. The hotels and the restaurants were hit because the lockdown, but the tourist locations with the thematic aspect were totally closed, and they lost everything in that time. After the lowering the lockdown or releasing the measures, some recovery was observed in restaurants, especially coffee shops and so on. People start gathering together, but the other aspects of tourism are still, in a bad shape. During that period, we had, expectations that some recovery will begin, but unfortunately, the second wave hit Serbia, especially during the period of, elections or some period after elections, and that is now peaking and changing the picture, not for the present, but actually for expectations for the future into tourism and especially in thematic tourism. During the first period, government resources were exhausted because Serbia is not so rich country, and there is a problem to continue with support for all aspects of industry, especially tourism and thematic tourism. In the meantime, there was another problem that is the problem of expectations and the signals regarding severity of virus or severity of spreading, and there was a mixed signals not only from government side but also from different media, especially yellow pages and so on. Because some experts are saying that's nothing, you don't have to worry. The others are saying it's terrible, don't even bring your nose out of your home. So not only for the regular people, but especially for the tourism, and especially in the peak of tourist season, when most of the people are going to a vacation during summer holidays, it makes great uncertainty between customers. Also, some countries are blocking other countries or tourists from other countries, as happened recently in Greece, because they, banned the income from Serbian tourists to Greece. Also, the other Balkan countries are experiencing the second wave of coronavirus spreading, and actually all of them are going or already involving new measures in limiting access to roads, to traveling, limiting number of people in restaurants, hotels, and so on and so on. This is the present situation, and actually for restarting there is very hard to say how to restart a tourist sector or how to restart demand. At the same time, because of no income or no government support and not feasible support in recent period, a lot of locations will not be able to, organize tourist access in accordance with the health rules or needed distance, separation between tourists during visits, and so on and so on. In the next period, we are not expecting too much support on the national level, especially low capacity to support local projects, because the low income of the local governments and the national government will take its toll. So the main expectation is that some kind of projects like this one, international projects, IPA funds, regional funds, can support projects and recovery of some locations for the tourism, either international or bilateral projects. And as a final remark, tourism needs time and money for tourists, to be ready to visit locations. Time can be, seen as possible, but income of people will be restricted because the other industries will be hit by this virus spreading, and the income of most of the people will be lowered in the next period. So some kind of support is needed for the tourist sector, especially for the cultural tourism or thematic tourism, which is in great trouble to reach any income in this period, especially in the second half of this year. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer or to seek answer with our stakeholders.
The presentation of Panta drew the attention to 2 points, very interesting. The first is a very bad news, the risk of a second wave. Because in our report, we already collected the expectation of a duration of a crisis until the second semester of 2021, the economic impact. But what Panta told us about the risk of a second wave creates an uncertainty that could really prolong the crisis to a limit that is unbelievable, dramatic. The second is the issue of structural funds. We have a huge discussion in Europe in this moment, and we are already preparing a second paper on the use of structural funds for the recovery of the cultural tourism sector. But reality is that there are huge differences between the timing of the intervention with structural funds and the urgency of the crisis. So this is also an issue that will need a lot of work. So let me give now the floor to Mr. Yannis Retsas. I will apologize now and for later also on the pronunciation of the names. Mr. Retsas, the floor is yours.
You don't have to apologize, the pronunciation of the name was perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Listen, concerning Greece and the tourism sector and the effect of COVID-19. In Greece, we believe we did very well concerning how we treated the COVID-19. We took in time the necessary measures we had to take, and this disaster did not hit us as much as other countries. Also, concerning the economy, the numbers show that the effect was not that bad. For example, we have the figures for the foreign direct investment into Greece for the first 4 months of 2020, and the numbers are minus 9% versus year ago. So this is not tragic. For perspective, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development forecasts minus 40% for foreign direct investment for 2020 and minus 10% for 2021 and recovery from 2022 onwards. So we had minus 9-10% in foreign direct investment. We are okay. Exports, the first 5 months of 2020, we are down by 1.7% if you exclude the oil products. Oil meaning petroleum products, because we have refineries that import crude oil and export distilled oil. Excluding the effect of oil products, we are down, including May for the year, by 1.7%, which is very good. The month of May was the worst month, minus 12%, because our target markets like Italy or UK had major lockdowns. But so far the effects of COVID in Greece were not very significant. I'm afraid, however, that the worst is ahead of us, and I'm talking about the tourism sector. We have some research has been made, and it seems that 30% of the food service sector and 40% of hotels will not open in 2020. Also, 95% of hotels estimate that the turnover will be declined by 55% or more for 2020. These are very, very bad numbers for Greece. In the past years, tourism has been the key driver of our economy. Just to let you know that we had the Athens Olympic in 2004, 16 years ago. At that time, we had 10 million tourists annually. This is exactly the country population, 10 million people in Greece, 10 million tourists. In 2019, we had over 30 million tourists, 3 times the country population. So the effect, the tourism season has not started yet. It will be a very short season, and as I said, 40% of hotels will not open. A second wave of the disease will be disaster because in the last years in Greece, September and October were also very good months. We are afraid now that we will have a second wave. So the bad things are ahead of us. Basically, this is it. This is what I wanted to say. The main issue that the companies face is restrictions on travel, of course, and just to close this short presentation, the main issues that Greek tourism companies face is, of course, the restrictions on travel and the lack of tourism, and the liquidity. There have been some measures to improve the liquidity of the sector, to the companies do not have to pay the interest on their loans, and there have been also some extra loans from the government to help the company survive. This may not be enough. Concerning now our program, our work, what we should do is we should plan ahead. We should plan for 2021, taking into consideration that the COVID might be in existence for the next few years. So that's it from me. Yes, Biagio.
Mr. Retsas, sorry for before I had that difficulty. I was trying to manage the chat. From your intervention, I could really get the dramatic sides of the crisis, and a word that I still didn't use, but unfortunately also in Italy should be used: bankrupts. There is a huge risk of a permanent loss of capacity due to the bankrupt, especially of small companies that are especially fragile in financial terms, but also of medium and large companies. So this makes a central point of the crisis, the problem of the emergency measures. So I will give now the floor to Mr. Nicoletti, Antonio Nicoletti, the director of the Basilicata Agency for Tourism Development, that will come here.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you for organizing this meeting and for hosting us in the premises of University of Basilicata. I am very happy that we have the opportunity to share the results of the first study that has been produced by the project. But first of all, I would like to share with you, as you are doing already, what is happening in Basilicata region, and what is the commitment of the regional agency for territorial promotion, which I direct since a few months. I think that the opportunity to cooperate among territories and among tourism destinations, as we are doing in this project, is something that is very important. Also to cope with the uncertainty of the moment. We know that the international dimension is something that is very much affected by the virus, and the economic problems for tourism are very much related and are much more for the destinations that are depending on international flows. Sorry. International flows are those who are much more affected, but we would like to stress an approach that at regional level we are pursuing with our promotion strategy for the Basilicata region. We have been involved and we have promoted so far opportunities for debating and for the possibility for tourism operators to virtually meet and share problems, priorities, strategies. And so far, even during lockdown, we have been concentrated in trying to set down what could be the strategies for the restart of tourism after the lockdown. This is what we have done, and we have defined a new marketing strategy and a new campaign, promotional campaign at national level, which is related to the product of the environment and naturalistic tourism, but also to cultural tourism, just according to the condition that the activities can be done open air. So we are promoting a kind of tourism, and we are reorganizing the territorial offer with some keywords. The keywords are activities, and activities that can be done in the wild, in the green, in the parks, in the beaches, which are very broad. And we have started again from these points. I think that this can be shared. It is something that can be shared among some. I don't think all of our territories in the partnership, but most of them, I think. What was a little bit more difficult was to think again about the product of the cultural place as Matera. Matera is a cultural city. It is a historic city. It is characterized by very unique dwellings in caves. But we, with the municipality of Matera, we have been working on tables for promoting the use of the squares and the open places of the city, so connecting cultural product to the open spaces. I am telling this because I think and I'm sure that these are thematics that are very much related to the project that we are involved in. And so my contribution today is related to the will of sharing with you this approach that we have been pursuing as a regional agency, and let the partnership all together think about the possibility to push forward the joint effort to define strategies for our Adriatic-Ionian area that explores in an international dimension the possibility to better develop the offer of the we have called en plein air offer, and the possibility to promote and do joint actions for promoting this kind of project. So I thank very much Biagio again for the organization of the meeting, and I let the stage to the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio. The intervention of Mr. Nicoletti was, I would like to mention two keywords, very interesting keywords. The first is about this, the en plein air tourism, the sustainable tourism in the new scenario. That is very interesting. The second is virtual tourism. That is also thanks to the contribution of APT and of other stakeholders in the report is thoroughly discussed as a tool to help the transition to a new form of sustainable tourism. So I would like just to add that Antonio already opened the discussion that was one of the scope of this meeting about the pilot projects that are a huge part of our thematic project, and I'm sure I really look forward to hearing the proposal of APT in this, because I'm sure that thematic will give a substantial contribution through its pilot projects to these new models of sustainable tourism. So now I fear that we have a change of program, because unfortunately our partners in Albania had a technical problem, so they are not online now, and I think I will give the floor to the next partner. I wanted to say this, and now I'm speaking to the interpreters. Really, if I can have a feedback from them, if I understood correctly, they arranged in a way that makes less important the breaks. So if this is true, please let me hear if I can move to the next presentation. Okay. But before this, I want to take note of a question by Nenad Rokvic that is asking about what is the current estimation in loss of jobs in the hospitality sector. I might ask to Antonio if he wants to. This question was asked during your presentation. What is obviously we are not speaking of statistical measures. Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, we have just one point one speaking point. So, about what is going on in terms of losses.
Okay, thanks for the question. I must say that we are still not very much aware of what will be the real impact in terms of job losses due to the coronavirus and the economic crisis. It is unfortunately a long wave that we must expect. So far, what I can say is that the regional government, as well as other institutions, public institutions around Europe and around the world, has put into practice some specific economic aids for the sector. You know very well what has been the debate between the Italian government and European Commission, but apart from that, about the public intervention for helping the economy in general, I can say that in the region of Basilicata, only at regional level and only for tourism sector, the regional government has used 53 million euros dedicated to tourism, to tourism enterprises, and even more are the measures, the economic measures that have been disposed by the government, national government, and also the regional government for a more generalistic, tenders for aids, for job protection, etc. According to our direct knowledge of the entrepreneurs, we don't have much. Basilicata region is quite small, so we are quite able to get in touch and to have a direct dialogue with the entrepreneurs. We can say that the sector is still alive, and it is good that we have started the summer season with the tourism that since the beginning of June has slowly started, and in July is starting again. So we see tourists, we see some tour operators that is working, and from our website with Google Analytics, just today I was seeing that we have some connections coming from all over the world, which means that people is starting again to think about traveling and think about traveling to Basilicata. So I don't know if I replied to the question, but for sure it is a very tough time, and we must be aware that things can, the only thing that we can do is to monitor daily what is happening and what will happen during summertime, which is the most important time for tourism in Basilicata, and maybe during the autumn and in winter we will be able to just summarize what was 2020 for regional tourism.
Okay, so thank you very much, Antonia. And really, I hope today will be the first day we start a direct dialogue between the communities of our partnership. So now I will give the floor to Helena. Where is the Helena Cvenkel for her presentation from Slovenia. Slovenia, that is a close neighbor and a great partner for tourism of the northeastern regions in Italy. So I'm really interested in hearing what she will tell us.
Slovenia in our region at our very good conference. First of all, I would like to say that I'm also glad that my colleague Franja is also with me, and also two stakeholders from both pilot areas, from Skopje Loka and from Bohinj. And first of all, I would like to say that this COVID-19 struck us really hard because it started very early in spring, when also our tourism season usually starts. And the issue is that most of our most developed part of touristically most developed part, namely Julian Alps, which is bordering Italy and Austria.
I need to stop you again. The interpreter is asking, please, to speak a bit closer to the microphone.
Okay, I will do my best now. Okay, first of all, hope that you heard me so far. Most of our most developed touristic area, which is bordering Italy and Austria, and also national park, is very much dependent of the foreign guests. And in reality, most of the almost practically there was no tourist flow at all, because of course the borders were closed, and also Slovenians were kept in the borders of local communities. After that, I think that our government reacted quite good because they issued special vouchers for all inhabitants in Slovenia. So everybody can use 200 euros in overnight stays, and for children is 50 euros. And out of it, that was the first measure that gradually started to bring trust back also to the tourist areas. No? And additionally, what we also have, and I heard also from other colleagues, is that there are subsidies for people that cannot work or they lost a lot of income. And I must say that when I look at the value chain with which tourism is very much connected, we see a lot of troubles in a lot of service sectors that are connected to tourism. And frankly, we expect that if this situation will worsen now, as we hear from the colleagues from Serbia, we can really expect, we would be glad to have at least 30% of the income from last year. But what is perhaps positive out of it, and what are the words also of my colleague from Bohinj, the director of tourism Bohinj, who is also responsible in a way for development of Julian Alps tourist destination. He said, yeah, we were always for sustainable green tourism, and we didn't have the time really to concentrate on the vital issues that really are the sustainable tourism. And also cultural tourism is important part of sustainability and a sustainable way of living, because it comes from our culture, no? I also believe that this crisis is an opportunity for the future, and somehow, as we have in our Julian Alp destination reset team, I believe that also we can reset the way of thinking and the way of programming our tourism also for the future. And I think that also in our partnership we have a lot of very good experts that together we can also bring a new way of development back to our regions. And I must say that also for the future cohesion policy, I hope that there will be development resources for tourism, because the tourism and services and products connected to tourism are one of the most affected by this COVID-19. Thank you.
One speaker point, but if our colleague Franja or also the other stakeholders want to intervene, they are welcome. So, Helena told us about this problem of the support, this issue of support to the restart of demand of tourism. Many of our countries are discussing about vouchers for tourism, but this is we already understood that it's a very complicated, it's a very difficult instrument. Because of the special characters of the tourism demand and and also of the structure, because of the structure of the tourism sector. So this will be an interesting issue to discuss among us. I will be really curious to hear also the opinion of Mr. Nicoletti. For the moment, we need to move to the next presentation by our partners. Now it's the turn of Mr. Ivanovic, and probably he will be the first to use a PowerPoint presentation. So at some point, probably we will see a presentation on the screen. Please, Miroslav.
Thank you, Biagio. At first, I would like to say hello to all participants to this online workshop regarding COVID outbreak, and to say hello in behalf of Regional Development Agency Zlatibor from Užice. You cannot see, but we are now in Regional Innovation Startup Center, and there is only few of us according to new health measures caused by reinforced pandemic situation in all parts in Serbia. I need to notice that after lifting the state of emergency in Serbia in March 2020, it seems that the situation in the field of cultural tourism was improving, and that many localities in Serbia would start to record tourist growth, and that many tourism and cultural events would take place in Western Serbia during the summer season. But the spread of coronavirus in June and July 2020 tells us otherwise. Now I'm going to put my PowerPoint presentation on, and to inform you about our research situation in the field of cultural tourism in Western Serbia influenced by Corona-19. Okay. We were discussing with our partners that works in the field of cultural tourism, following reactions to the market in Western Serbia, looking for the best way to help the survival of entities in this sector, especially the private one, because it is the most endangered due to the lack of tourist demand. When interviewing, we had equally represented entities from all sectors as well as entities of different territorial activities in order to obtain the most relevant and objective conclusions and recommendations for cultural tourism recovery. COVID-19 as a global crisis in tourism did not bypass Western Serbia. The tourism and hospitality sector have been hit hard, and the cultural tourism sector experiences huge damages due to closed borders, lockdown orders of nearly all countries, and slow relaxation of health safe measures. Movement bans are absolutely reflected in the work of the museums, which register a much smaller number of visitors. The restaurants are working at a reduced capacity with a limited number of guests, so there is practically no income. There is a decline in turnover in the accommodation and catering sector, lack of interest in tourism of special interests, lack of tourist movements, and delay in payment of financial obligations. Many manifestations are cancelled or postponed, and those that will be held will be less visited. Tour guides are practically blocked as they are working with groups of visitors, and tourist traffic has not yet started to function adequately. In spite of big job done on online presentations and online marketing, I'm talking about domestic tourism market, it is obvious that Western Serbia region will have fewer registered tourist visits, especially foreign ones. When we are talking about expected recovery time, no one can say for sure what sector can expect by the end of 2020, while the most of traveling reservations are postponed to the first half of 2021. Our stakeholders state that only 20% of planned activities or booked tours are realized during 2020. Generally, we hope that there will be no long-term loss, that what is lost through income from foreign tourists will be compensated through income from domestic population or domestic tourists. And it will be much harder for event organizers because they will have to take additional safety and health measures, which will increase the costs of the organization of the events. When we are talking about actions for recovery, almost all stakeholders are aware of the crisis and are ready to provide their services for much lower prices. All respondents consider that any financial help is welcome, any kind of help to the actors in the tourism value chain, because the entire chain of actors in tourism are at loss. The measures taken by government of Serbia provide temporary financial security, but there is a question or a problem of their sustainability. Providing financial incentives, including favorable tax policies, lifting travel restrictions, promoting visa facilitation, strengthening marketing and consumer confidence by awarding grants to speed recovery, put tourism at the center of national recovery plans and action plans. When we're talking about medium long-term measures, the priority is to invest in cultural tourism infrastructure, but also to create additional attractions and new facilities, and to make targeted promotion in all levels of well-customized and attractive cultural routes. When we're talking about actions to support demand, our stakeholders point out that we need a constant promotion of safe travel visits to cultural sites, business meetings which stress attention that guarantee safe travel and flexible booking at service tours. You also mentioned, the previous speaker, travel vouchers issued by Ministry of Trade, Tourism and Communication of Republic of Serbia, but our vouchers we can use, our tourists can use it only for accommodation services, not other services like museum visits or other services in cultural tourism. And we need marketing support activities by Ministry of Trade, Tourism and Communication and Ministry of Culture and Information. And they point out that that we need better connection between business entities, especially between public and private entities. When we're talking about financial feasibility of these actions, the majority of respondents believe that state aid and measures to improve the economy have a very significant effect and have helped to a certain extent. In the current situation, tourism is the last to recover because the restrictions related to movements, gathering, distancing, etc. have remained in force. Private sector point out that there should be implemented totally different long-term planning and strategically managed measures for tourism development with great involvement of travel industry professionals who closely cooperate with a large number of sites and service providers. None of the respondents are familiar with the role of European structural funds in the implementation of a recovery strategy in the cultural tourism sector, and they think that adoption of unique measures and recommendations and unified action plans at the international level would help us in a strategic recovery of cultural tourism. For now, it is very useful to exchange good experiences and practices on a daily basis. Actually, that is all from our survey, and I hope that we will see you soon in Western Serbia. Until then, please stay safe. Biagio?
Miroslav. You pointed to an interesting question, especially for us that work on international cooperation, interregional territorial cooperation in Europe, and with the candidate countries. This is a point that should be considered: the coordination of the instrument for pre-accession, like IPA, and the structural funds instruments. And in this, our projects could provide a contribution. So now we go back to the north with Ivana Ostoic, that will tell us about the situation in Croatia.
Also later we are going to hear a few words from our Ministry of Tourism. They were so kind that basically they are going to share also their insights on the state of the tourism in Croatia right now, and I will basically focus much more on COVID, restart of the tourism, and the survey which we basically did, and the results that we got from the survey. So basically, tourism is very dependent on, our BDP is very dependent on tourism. Actually, almost 22% of GDP is generated from the tourism activities. And even more when we consider that other sectors like agri-food or in general hospitality is connected also with tourism. So in all, basically over 40% of Croatia's GDP is now endangered. In the survey, as also other presenters and Biagio mentioned earlier, what was pointed out, uncertainty. So nobody knows what will happen, and also what nobody knows how to solve the current situation due to the COVID. What maybe some of you already are familiar with, that Croatia opened the borders for tourists. Also, as probably you will hear later in the presentation of the ministry, we have the Croatia cards. So if you applied through the online registration, and a couple of days ago we had almost 1,200,000 applications to enter Croatia, then if you are traveling by car, you're going to have special lane on the borders. There are also some vouchers for tourists. So Croatia is trying to do the restart of tourism in general. But when we talked with our stakeholders about the cultural tourism, they all expressed significant concerns, because for the moment, cultural tourism is only happening online through virtual tours that some museums has already offered, or maybe some virtual events such as ours. But what we are all aware of, that this is only a substitution and it cannot replace the actual experience of the tourism. So basically there is expectation that the level of tourism compared to the last year is going to be 70 to 80% less. We already lost a significant part of the tourist season in the pre-season, and what we can witness today in Croatia, that our beaches, our hotels, our restaurants are mostly empty. And what we hope that in the coming month and during the August, there is going to be at least some increase, if not from foreign tourists, then from the domestic. And again, the uncertainty is that we don't know what can happen tomorrow, if there is going to be another lockdown, and what is going to be the situation also in the longer run. So basically, the main message from our survey was that, as also we heard in presentations that preceded mine, we have to start focusing on the next season. We have to find new innovative ways how to not only present the tourism in the future, but how to avoid all the problems that obviously we all are going to face due to the current COVID situation. And as we don't know how long it's going to take, and if even the next season is going to be as bad as this one, to find new ways how to promote our countries, how to promote the cultural events, and how to engage the people in the new reality. Because what we are facing, that there is a new reality, we are all adapting on a daily basis, and we will have to adapt for at least some time. And also one of the things that we pointed out, and what was opinion of the stakeholders, that obviously in the future we have to rethink what cultural tourism in general is, because what can happen that maybe in next couple of months or couple of years we will have again similar situation, maybe not due to COVID, but some either virus, bacteria, or some other natural disaster. What basically some other destinations had seen, for example, the flooding of Venice also is causing significant problems only at the moment, in some part of the year. But it's obvious that there are going to be huge changes, and that we will have to find new innovative ways how to tackle the tourism. That's all from my side, and later you're going to hear more about it in the short discussion with the Ministry of Tourism of Croatia. Thank you.
Ivana, yeah, you raised the golden question in this moment. Should we, till some weeks ago, we should have the question: should we work for a new standard in tourism? Unfortunately, this question is becoming a statement now. Most probably we will need to develop, to design, to test and to establish a new standard in tourism because as you said, the risk of new pandemic, new natural disruptions of the model, of the tourism model that grew in the last decades most probably will not be sustainable anymore. Okay, so now let me give the floor to Mr. Tomasz Logotekis from the region of Epirus, and soon after we will hear from two interesting contributions from at the program level. From Adrion and from a neighbor program, that of Serbia, Romania. So the floor to Joint Secretariat of the Adrion program and our program manager is available. She could give her speech before that of Mr. Logotekis, hoping that he will solve the technical difficulties. Okay.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad to be here with you today. And for the beginning, I would like to congratulate you for this report that you prepared, and also for this workshop that you organized, because it's a really good example of adapting to the current situation. So this report is also very important because, as we all know, the tourism is one of the sectors where the situation was changed dramatically with this health emergency, and this analysis on new approaches on how to restart is also very, very important. And on the other hand, it is important because it is looking at the program area as like that is very heterogeneous territory, and we know that we have the EU member states, non-EU member states, and the approaches that are very different, and they are depending on the countries. So it is very good to have this common approach for this sector. So now I will tell you something about the situation at the program level, at the inter-community, because it was also affected by the emergency, and the response of the European Commission was to set measures that could immediately reply to the needs in the key priority sectors, and these measures were mostly giving the possibility to shift funds. So you can't hear me, are not in the position to provide an immediate answer to this situation. But as we are now in a phase of planning the future programs from the 2021 till 2027, so we will have possibility to use the inputs of the projects that are being implemented now, and to use them to make like future topics and priorities of the future programs. And that is also the situation with Adrion program. As I already said, it was not okay. Interpreters will be able to continue also with their work. So I was saying about the Adrion program that it was not possible to set up the measures that would be applicable for the whole territory in response, in an immediate response of the health emergency situation. So we will use the inputs of the projects that are currently being implemented, and your report will also be an important input to set up future scenarios and to choose future topics and intervention fields for the program that will be going from 2021 to 2027. So as far as the program structures are concerned, we are fully operational. The Joint Secretariat is working remotely still, but we are providing assistance in these new circumstances to the projects. So we also facilitated the work of the controllers in the case they are also working remotely, and we are also trying to organize all program level events through video conferences. And as far as the projects are concerned, we had a situation with the projects from the first call that most of them were in their final phases, and because of some of them it was impossible to implement all activities foreseen. So they all got extension, trying to adapt to these new circumstances and to implement those activities that remain to be implemented. And on the other hand, we had projects from the second call. This is also your case, as we heard at the beginning, and this situation that happened in the first weeks of the implementation. So our advice for the projects from the second call was to try to identify all activities that are possible to be implemented, like desk-based activities, to organize all meetings through video conferences and to try to adapt to this situation. But now, as it is still evolving, it is still impossible to estimate how it will develop. So in some countries we have a situation that is possible to organize meetings. Some other countries it's not possible, but the main problem is still impossibility for traveling. So now we are still in this phase of trying to adapt all work plans and try to implement as much as possible in this period in accordance with these circumstances. Another thing that I would like to share with you is that we also activated the cluster on tourism, on sustainable tourism, cultural natural destinations. So we have projects from the first call participating in it, and the plan was to include also projects from the second call in the event that will be organized later this year. So this event will also be an online event, but as we now, in your case, with this report, it seems that you are now ready to offer an important input also to the cluster. So we will put you in contact with the cluster leader, so we will try to include you now to their activities, and just to see how you can contribute to the activities that they are implementing. So as far as this cluster is concerned, they're planning to organize macro-regional events, and other projects will be invited from the field of tourism, from the program also. But you could also participate in the preparation. They're planning to prepare a joint report and a brochure on the outputs of their project that will probably contain this new measures that they had to adapt to. So yes, as the project started recently, the initial idea was to include them to cluster activities later on when they have something developed to offer to the clusters. But in your case, it could be very useful to include your project in the cluster now in this stage also. And the projects from the first call that are participating in the clusters are all finishing at the end of this year. So your project and other project from the second call will continue with the capitalization activities at the program level. So this was all that I planned to share with you today. So if there are any questions, I'm looking at the chat section, or maybe later, I don't know. But for now, I would like to thank you for the invitation to be here today with you.
Oh, thank you, Helena. Thank you very much for your intervention and your contribution to our discussion. I'm very glad to welcome your invitation. We, as you know, since the revision of our project for the final approval, we included activities, capitalization activities in the thematic cluster, and we would be really glad to give a contribution in this. As Mr. Nicoletti was already pointing out before, we unfortunately we are getting a lot of experience from our work on the floor in this moment. Not secondary, also in these technicalities of organization of mixed meeting in virtual and in person. So and regarding the capitalization, we have been discussing until now exactly of this, how to develop a new standard, a new model of a new tourism model, the keyword tourism en plein air that Mr. Nicoletti introduced is something on which we will be really glad to discuss with the friends and colleagues from the first call projects. So I see a lot of future even in the new framework for this. Now I'm very glad to give the floor to Miss Ivana Cristea, from the managing authority of the joint Serbia-Romania cross-border cooperation program. She is an extremely, even if she is extremely young, but she's an extremely experienced expert of cross-border cooperation, the head of the unit of the ministry in Bucharest in this program, and she is working already on that perspective that Helena introduced, that of the new programming, and she's working already on what we can do to adapt the new strategy to the new scenario. So I'm very happy to give the floor to Miss Ivana Cristea.
Thank you so much, Biagio. Really nice, nice words. I'm not that young though anymore. I have spent the last 14 years working for Romania-Serbia program. So really not that young. I will join only with audio today because I was told by the IT people that this would improve the sound, which did not work fantastic yesterday at the test. So I hope this is fine with everyone. So first of all, thank you for inviting me at this webinar, and I use this opportunity to invite you all to visit the border area between Romania and Serbia once the pandemic restrictions are over, as it is quite unique and extremely beautiful. Secondly, I must say that this is a topic I have been working on a lot lately, as the stakeholders in our program area decided to finance, that we need to finance interventions under Policy Objective 5 during the next programming period. And we have been seeking since then for new ways for restarting tourism activities and overcoming the economic effects of the COVID pandemic. But our main focus was to approach tourism development in an integrated manner, as the Policy Objective 5 is asking us to do. What we have done so far, because you mentioned previously capitalization, what we have done so far was to develop the capitalization instruments from our previous programming period, And now we are seeking ways to ensure complementarities and synergies with other programs. So I do hope that today's webinar is just a first step in our cooperation, because it was mentioned earlier by a Serbian colleague that national or state budget funds may not be sufficient at some point. Therefore, there is a need to complement the EU intervention, in my case, the IPA funds, with the resources from state budget in order to overcome the economic effects. Because, yeah, it is clear that the tourism industry as such has been hit really hard, and as it generates around 12 million jobs across all EU member states, it's clear that a lot of people and a lot of fields connected with tourism industry are hit really hard in this moment. Therefore, as interactions otherwise aimed at improving the life of the communities in the border area are not limited to the administrative borders, but have a flexible geography, and this flexibility generates interdependency, and when one thing fails, then the entire chain reaction is triggered. Therefore, the multi-thematic challenges which are faced today by the border areas in the field of tourism are do need to be approached by a more integrated strategy on tourism development. Moreover, the involvement of local actors is crucial for both improving the governance and increasing the ownership on the ground of the EU funds intervention. This integrated strategy for tourism I was mentioning earlier needs to be built by those people in the region owning the field of tourism. Those directly interested and those directly involved should come with project proposals, and in the beginning should come with this integrated strategy, and then with project proposals they need. And when doing so, these projects need to either replicate on some other results from previous project finance in the previous programs, or should just build upon the investments already done in this area. Also, in our vision, or in our concept paper, we are working on for development of an integrated approach for the tourism development. We have seen new ways to approach tourism in a more integrated way, as different municipalities and towns can complement with the others. For example, the natural assets in one area complements with the cultural heritage or business center in the other, and thus implementing an integrated strategy for restart and development of sustainable tourism, we believe would bring together all actors from the entire region, from different sectors, and this will impact the region as a whole, with no left behind municipalities in terms of socio-economic development and in terms of quality of life of the people living in the border area communities. Moreover, promoting the entire region as an integrated touristic destination means that not only the urban growth poles will benefit from investment and tourist attention, but also the surrounding areas, which in fact will lead towards the extension of tourist areas, a reduction of tourism concentration in the major city, and use of sustainable approaches in tourism planning and management. Another thing that I want to mention is that a lot of areas which are extremely beautiful and extremely let's say well seen in terms of cultural and nature tourism are still off the map for many national and international tourists. So in this period, we have been mapping all the sites, the historical sites, natural sites, even industrial, unused industrial spaces, which could benefit of investments in the next programming period and could be given back to the community. This was also a thing that we have been working a lot in this period. In terms of, because I mentioned earlier complementarity and synergies, I must say that the future Romania-Serbia cross-border cooperation program is closely linked to both European strategy for Danube region and to the European strategy for the Adriatic and Ionian region. And this is because we are a bit overlapping with EUSAIR, as Serbia is participating there with the entire territory. Therefore, the 6 districts joining in the program with Romania are included in that strategy as well. And our program aims at embedding innovative cooperation actions and approaches across regions, and we aim to embed the common pillars within the program priorities, namely those related to green and sustainable energy, environmental protection, biodiversity, but also the pillars related to culture and tourism, promoting common cultural and touristic values, sustainable and responsible tourism, and so on. So this being said, my hope would be that today is just the first step in a good cooperation. We will have via other webinars or even physical events if COVID pandemic will end soon. And to be able to exchange more information as our programming processes evolve, and when we all have a good idea on what we wish to finance, because we would be indeed interested in capitalizing from other projects implemented in the EUSAIR region, as you might be interested, I don't know, in seeing what we have done so far for the capitalization instrument. So yeah, I think this would be all from me today. Biagio?
I agree with you on 100% on what you said. And first of all, I agree with you that the border Romania-Serbia is one of the most beautiful places I have had the pleasure to visit. And so I would really love to imagine a physical an event in person, maybe close to the Porta de Fierro, if I pronounce correctly, on the Danube. So the cooperation between the macro areas, Adriatic and Danube, is really an interesting perspective, and we hope really to have new opportunities to work on this. Let me give now the floor to Miss Dimona from Matera, that will tell us about the Matera case. That was one of the most difficult cases, a town that went directly from an extraordinary year as a European capital of culture that was in 2019 to the crisis of 2020. Ms. Dimona, the floor is yours.
Innanzitutto vi ringrazio nuovamente per la parola e quindi per la possibilità dell'intervento in rappresentanza.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me the word and for enabling me to express, to share with you what has happened here. I'd like to thank all the previous speakers, all the partners who offered a lot of food for thought and make us feel less lonely in tackling this major crisis, this major global crisis. Well, I don't want to go into and repeat things about the general economic situation that, of course, sees so many difficulties, also in terms of managing and administering our areas at such a tough time. As far as our situation is concerned, as we heard, we came from a wonderful year, a year when our city, when Matera, could boast unbelievable cultural events, advertising campaigns, promotional campaigns due to major events, with Matera being the leading actor of such an important European year. Well, of course, we had all imagined a 2020 following on 2019, fulfilling all the dreams that had started in the previous year. Well, unfortunately, this did not happen because the pandemic brought us to, all of us, to a halt. Well, of course, it hit all of us, on a global scale. And it hit all the possible tourist destinations and also cultural tourist destinations like Matera. Well, of course, the restart is bound to be a complex restart because we are tackling an economic emergency, a city with an important, a significant GDP created by tourist flows and suffering such a setback. Well, it's true that in the months preceding the crisis, we made an effort to imagine the near and, let's say, long-term future. And indeed, we actually attempted to create a network between Matera and other cultural tourist destinations, cultural cities in Italy, to see what actions we could take together so as not to scatter all that wealth and beauty created the previous year. And so we had first thought of focusing on proximity tourism. And of course, we discussed that also in the days preceding this workshop, in the discussions preceding this workshop. And so we thought that maybe all the neighboring areas and neighboring regions might be more interested in visiting our city and in visiting all the, let's say, cultural sites and cities in the proximity. Well, we knew very well that international tourism would be most hardly hit with the emergency, and we thought that proximity tourism might be a good target. Of course, now the recovery is very slow, and it's bound to be slow also in the near future. We try to work side by side with all the businesses operating in our area, and clearly when I refer to businesses, I also include all the cultural associations who worked last year and who continue to work and who, despite the obstacles and difficulties created by this crisis, are still working in a very resilient way, and they continue to move forward. We're very well aware that now our main aim is to go through this tough time through temporary measures. Well, clearly it will be difficult to recover what we have lost, but well, let's be optimistic and not surrender based on data. Well, not so much about July, but August and September will show some, let's say, signs of recovery, and that gives us hope, especially in economic terms. Well, of course, that has an impact on the citizens' mood, let's say, the atmosphere, the climate. Well, we were aware and we perceived that we needed to act at two different levels. We had to take measures with the people, let's say, of the area, but we also had to communicate with the people at large to restore optimism. Matera was lucky enough to be a city and a region who did not suffer from a major health impact because of the pandemic, and of course that helped a lot. If on the one hand it's helping us, we of course are far from thinking about health tourism. We are rather safe in terms of COVID, but the moral duty is, of course, to keep on applying all the precautionary measures that are required for a restart. And based on what the director of our APT said, our administration decided to identify some alternative measures and paths in addition to those adopted globally, to show our willingness, our strong willingness to restart, involving young people too. We decided to create new paths, new itineraries, so as to make distancing, social distancing possible, and streamlining all those situations that would be subject to people's gatherings. So we launched many projects that can favor the so-called soft mobility, stimulating students to reach the schools, or creating cycling paths or pedestrian paths. And we're doing that to support sustainability, since the task of every administration is to promote sustainability and to make every tourist itinerary and project sustainable. Never as now, cooperation is important. We started to collaborate not just with our region, but also with other Italian municipalities, and hopefully with the entire Europe. Well, not just because we were the previous capital of culture. We, of course, are Italian citizens, citizens of Matera and of our region, but first and foremost of Europe. We're citizens of Europe and want to make space for any initiative that creates this European space, this European proximity for tourism that takes place within European borders. Thank you very much. I'd like to give you...
Resilience of Matera in front of the crisis is I really admire the Matera people, Matera institutions that are facing a dramatic crisis, I was very happy to hear that there are already signs of restart. I hope that with also our work we will try to give, we will have the opportunity to give a small contribution to this restart also in Matera. So now let me give the floor to Ms. Patrizia Minardi. She's the responsible of the Office for Cultural System and International Cooperation, and she will tell us about the regional level government perspective. Patrizia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Grazie, buonasera a tutti, grazie per l'invito, complimenti anche per il coordinamento rispetto.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you for the experience coming from throughout Europe, which is very interesting. We are all rowing the same boat. We are all fighting against the same enemy. In the past, inter-regional projects would highlight diversities between the countries from an economic, cultural, social point of view, whereas now the crisis shows that we are faced with the same problems, that we have to work together. In the Adriatic-Ionian Euro region, we have to understand what to do, how to start again as against the other Adrian projects. So we mainly focused on the issue of the protection of the landscape, of the environment, and of the sea. Through the Adriatic-Ionian European region, macro-region, we focused on sea trade, sea crafts like blue growth, and everything that is related to the sea and maritime coastal issues, as far as sea environment is concerned. And all these sectors have to be further protected to avoid falling into an even serious crisis that we are going through, especially fisheries, the sea-related trade and business, and environment, tourism, cultural tourism, environmental tourism related to related business. So we have to focus on the protection, promotion of the environment, places, the sea, our blue flags that we still preserve, that we are still proud of, that we can still boast, thanks to the big efforts concerning the actions devoted to the protection of the sea and the maritime areas and the sea and coastal areas. We have to restart again. I think we have to understand how to restart by enhancing, by preserving, enhancing what we already have so that they can stay there, so the resources are kept healthy and robust when we're ready to start again. When I was asked during these interviews within the framework of Adrian on how to start again, what to do to start again, as the Slovenian Greek stakeholders said about the integration of strategies and stakeholders, well, we have also to concentrate on the integration of tourist supply offer, because of course first and foremost we have to think of the protection of the land, sea and coastal areas, so that we have the assets to be preserved and the trade and business related to these areas. So protection of the supply also means focusing on a new type of cultural tourism to preserve our coastal areas, the sea resources, our landscapes, making sure that young people and those who work in this sector may be protected, may be guaranteed, so that as soon as possible they can start again by enhancing these assets. And when talking about domestic tourism, when referring to how to relaunch domestic tourism in this period, we are referring to the natural, environmental, cultural heritage that we have and that needs to be protected and promoted, and that we have promoted so far. So I think that special efforts should be made in integrating the tourist offers, so that all our tourist destinations, cultural tourist destinations, I mean the various thematic parks, natural parks, cultural locations, everything that has to do with our memory, with our past, our heritage. Well, this is our added value, this is our heritage, our assets, and so this is where we have to start again from. Our coastal areas are important, and so we need to make sure that trust is the key word for all the citizens, but also for tourists and visitors coming from southern Italy, but also from throughout Italy and from the Adriatic-Ionian region and from throughout Europe. So we need to make sure that they feel safe and that they can trust about the importance of the recovery of our heritage. We've got so much to offer, many historical sites and cultural characters that are the leaders of our history. So we need to make our tourist destinations safe, to make our tourist offer integrated and wide and broad enough. So only in such a way can we protect environment, heritage, cultural heritage, the sea and the land, so that people coming and to visit us and spend their holidays too, they can appreciate what we have already enhanced and promoted, so that it can be further appreciated. So these are the main issues: environment, coastal areas, the sea, landscape, thematic parks, cultural destinations, and the preservation of our past, of our memory, so that they can become a flywheel to a new engine to restart tourism. Southern Italy, Magna Grecia, our ancient history, Magna Greece, and the historic characters that are well known throughout the world, Carlo Levi or Horace and others, might serve as a point of reference and an opportunity for further development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrizia. It's very I'm very happy, first of all, as a Basilicata citizen, that to see that a lot is already in progress in our region, to move forward, to think about the restart of the tourism, cultural tourism sector. But I think that I heard a lot of ideas, a lot of experimentation will be done in the next months and years, and I think that the framework of inter-regional cooperation is the right framework to test quickly these ideas and to promote innovation, capitalization also of innovations. So thank you very much, and I'm giving now the floor to another speaker that will tell us about the governmental level, Miss Anna Maria Vukcevic from Croatia. Anna Maria, the floor is yours.
From the Ministry of Tourism of the Republic of Croatia. I will speak instead of Assistant Minister Olivera Šarić. She regards all the participants. The Croatian government is working closely with the Croatian National Civil Protection and epidemiologists and experts from Croatian Public Health Institute since the beginning of the crisis caused by COVID-19. And that is why we have now such a favorable situation, especially at the seaside. Also, in March, the government of Croatia passed a total of 66 measures to help the economy. The measures refer to a total of 8 ministries, of which a large part of measures relate to the preservation of liquidity and jobs of entrepreneurs with the Ministry of Finance. Also, Croatia government pays companies around 1,500 euros for each worker for salary who have difficulties in doing business so as not to lay them off. The European Commission also has approved a 40 million euros Croatian program to support small and medium-sized enterprises operating in cultural sector and creative industries, which have been among the most affected by the coronavirus epidemic. The ban on gatherings, the cancellation of cultural events, the closure of theaters, cinemas and concert halls have had a significant economic impact of entrepreneurs, independent artists and other people active in cultural sector. Companies operating in the cultural sector and creative industry are eligible to support under this program. Up to 1,000 companies are expected to be supported by this measure. Today, events and public gatherings, weddings, conferences, sports events, and nightclubs are allowed. In order to help the tourism sector and Croatian exporters, it is planned to expand the scope of the Export Guarantee Fund and Croatia Bank for Reconstruction and Development to include the tourism sector and economic entities that indirectly export, in order for as many clients endangered by the consequences of coronavirus as possible to become beneficiaries of guarantees, insurance policies, and those loans of Commercial Bank and Croatia Bank. Some of the measures of the Ministry of Tourism to help the economy due to the coronavirus epidemic are exemption from paying tourist tax for private renters, exemption from payment of variable part of the concession fee for 2019 for the use of the concession on tourist landing camps, postponement of payment of permanent part of the concession fee for 2020 for the use of concession on tourist land in camps, exemption from payment of the variable part of the concession fee for 2019 for the use of the concession on tourist land owned by local self-government units. The Ministry of Tourism provides 3 million euros from the Croatian Bank for Reconstruction and Development, conclude an agreement on business cooperation on the implementation of liquidity measures for entrepreneurs in the tourism sector. As we welcome tourists back, we want to reiterate that the health and safety of our visitors continues to be a top priority in Croatia. The government is monitoring the epidemiological situation on a daily basis and distributing regularly updated recommendations to maintain a minimal risk for residents and visitors. Croatia is still considered one of the safest destinations to visit in Europe, with some of the lowest numbers of cases per million inhabitants. So, with the aim of increasing the efficiency of crossing the border of the Republic of Croatia and to keep our guests aware of the epidemiological measures that are currently active in Croatia, the Ministry have launched the new Enter Croatia website. On the mentioned website, there is an online form in which all data that is normally requested on the border crossings can be entered, and with a simple presentation of a passport or identity document to the police officer at the border, the number of code from the identity card or passport is automatically linked to all pre-entered data in the online form. In this way, the entire procedure for entering the data of each individual person on the border is reduced to minimum and the traffic flow increases. This innovative solution will enable the quicker entry of tourists into Croatia, while maintaining all security protocols and communication with our visitors. As the operational coordinator of the Inherit project, I must emphasize that there is also a positive side to pandemic, which are reduced environmental pollution due to the reduced impact of road, sea and air traffic. Also, reduction of noise levels, especially in the sea. The Ministry of Tourism is a project partner in the project Inherit, Sustainable Tourism Strategies for Preservation and Valorization of the Natural Heritage of the Coastal and Marine Area of the Mediterranean, which was approved for co-financing under the Interreg Mediterranean Programme. Priority access, free, protection and promotion of natural and cultural resources of the Mediterranean. Specific objective 3.1, promoting the development of sustainable and responsible coastal and coastal tourism in the Med program area. The Inherit project is an integrated Interreg Med project with 15 partners coming from 10 Mediterranean countries. It is a 4-year project that aims to conserve and valorize natural heritage in the Med coastal and maritime tourist destination, alleviating the adverse effects of overcapacity tourism in these areas through the promotion of sustainable tourism. The project will test and deploy a new approach in promoting sustainable tourism that includes novel mix of measures, integrated coastal zone management and maritime special planning integration, bottom-up waste management initiatives to protect its natural heritage from mass tourism effects, like excess construction and waste, desertification, erosion, exceed capacity, tourism seasonality, and strategy of transnational cooperation that are helping, that can be taken for the successful implementation of sustainable measures to alleviate the mass tourism, which this corona pandemic now help us also. It is like visitor management, defining different zone areas, hotspots and attraction or facilities, roads and paths, design of tourist routes, fees, charging access to the areas, restriction, for example, on visitor numbers, communication material, codes of conduct, branding and standards, and so on. Thank you.
Have to adapt to this, also to this new standard of video conference with the remote interpretation, but by the way, I take the opportunity to thank the interpreters that are or is doing a great job. I will give now the floor. I'm very sorry to Marco Ristovski. I think I should give the line to Miroslav. Really, I'm sorry, just 3 minutes.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I hope that you can hear me. I would like to greet all the competitors of this event, and I would like to introduce myself. My name is Marko. I'm coming from Užice, Western Serbia. So we are located in the, let's say, the biggest town in the area of the Western Serbia, and I'm the owner of 2 hostels and 1 touristic agency. and we are highly affected by this pandemic that is happening at the moment around the world, including our country as well. So from the perspective of the hospitality industry, and because one of our hostels is located in Užice in the city center, and the another one is located in the Tara National Park. So in the Tara National Park, we still have some guests coming. Looks like that the people are trying to get away from the big cities. So mostly the domestic tourists now. And in the hostel in Užice, in this moment, we don't have any guests since new measurements were taking place in our country, and we don't have a opportunity to work normally as a hostel since we have a sharing dorms and sharing bathrooms. People are kind of scared. As a touristic agency, we still get some guests, but very, very few. And I'm not so happy to say that we don't have any help from the government at the moment. So the help that we got, like as a business, not as a touristic entrepreneurs, we get like a help like any other business in Serbia, which is like 250 euros a month per employee. But from this 250 euros, approximately 150 we are giving back through the tax and the insurance. So basically there is no any help, and there is no any help, specific help for the tourism industry in this moment. So our hostel didn't work for nearly 3 months because of all this state of the emergency, and then we start to work a little by little, but now still, since now we have a new issue with the COVID-19 situation, now we are forced to close down because there's a certain measurements that we can't accomplish with the resources that we have. So we basically have to close down this one of the hostels, which is located in the city center. So we are kind of affected because like 80% of our guests in the past was foreigners, and now we don't have foreigners. Foreigners, they just don't come, they don't travel, there's no low-cost flights. So people are scared of traveling, scared of sharing bathrooms, sharing common areas. So we don't know what's going to happen like with tourism industry. It's like entrepreneurs, little by little, they just giving up from the tourism because nobody knows what's coming tomorrow. Because in this moment we don't really know, we don't see the end and exit from this current situation. If we know that maybe next year is going to be like everything's going to go back to the normal, then it might going to have some purpose to support the business and take some loans and just survive until the next year. But in this moment, that's the only thing that we have. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I have to tell you to conclude because the platform will kick us off in a few minutes. But I really would like to ask you to commit to be back in some other event of the project, because you said something that is concluding something that I opened in the beginning, speaking about our report. We have a moment. In this moment, the main problem, this was also the outcome of the survey among stakeholders, the main problem is the risk of loss, of permanent loss of companies, of capacity, of production capacity, because many companies could risk not to survive the financial crunch that was triggered by the by the crisis. So I'm glad now to give the floor to Stefano Marani, that is part of our team, in the thematic team for the University of Basilicata, and he will tell us some ideas, some visions about the future work of our project, of all those that need to innovate about tourism. And I'm sorry, I need to ask also to Stefano to stay in the time and possibly to deliver his interesting presentation in the time left. So here is Stefano. Okay.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. It has been a very interesting opportunity this afternoon to listen all the contribution by the partners. I will not use the presentation because we are in a shortening of time, but I would like to stress some key concepts that I think that will be our compass in keeping ahead our project, our thematic project. First of all, the concept of trust. Trust is evidently the key pillar of tourism, and in particular of cultural tourism. So our job in this phase is deals with how to re-establish trust. We are facing a crisis that is dealing with our loose capacity in dealing with risks. The health risk of pandemic was known since at least 10 years. The warnings from the World Health Organization dated 3 years ago, but evidently no country kept the proper arrangements to cope with that type of risk. Our job in thematic is to give substance to the concepts of innovation, of sustainability, of accessibility that are largely used in the application form of thematic, according to the fact that the pandemic, COVID-19, is redefining the criteria. This means for all of us to try to keep our local tourism systems more resilient, reducing their vulnerability. Risk fundamentally are the probability of an event to occur, as the pandemic or heat waves due to climate change. Vulnerability deals with our capacity to respond effectively when the risk event actually occurs. So our aim is to keep our local tourism more resilient, more capable to address the risk with proper procedures, arrangement, that are also able to re-establish trust by tourists, by our clients. Just to keep your attention on the specific activities of thematic project, we have some outputs that are strongly interrelated, like under the first work package 1, the Atlas of Cultural and Naturalistic Destinations, the guidelines for feasibility studies investments in innovative and sustainable tourism, training need analysis and feasibility studies for pilot project. I would like to stress in particular the aspects dealing with pilot projects because it deals with our opportunity to establish new experiences, new ways to keep risk managed, better managed than has been done insofar. These are different outputs of the project that will keep the need of our attention, the best attention, in view to create the most innovative possible experiences upon a concept of integrated territorial strategies for tourism. That integrated deals also with the fact that innovation, sustainability and accessibility keep a real concrete meaning. Our duty is to try to make of our cultural capital a social value that can be shared among citizens and among our hosts. It will be a very nice, very important challenge that will keep our attention in the next months. Thank you very much.
Very much, Stefano, because he was able to say a lot of things in so few minutes, and I want to tell him and to tell all the participants and the other speakers that we will obviously forward to the participants and to the others the presentation of Stefano, and obviously we will also work further on these topics, and the first opportunity to go back on these issues will be that of the publication of the first newsletter by the thematic project that will happen in the next week. So I want just to thank everybody. I would like to give just 10 seconds the floor to also to Mariella Stella if she wants to greet the audience also in Matera. Here it is.
Grazie per questo interessantissimo incontro e insomma siamo sicuri che ci sarà un seguito ancora più interessante perché comunque ci siamo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this very interesting meeting, and we're sure the follow-up will be even more interesting. We're sharing so much, and the crisis we're all grappling with is absolutely common to all of us, and we can find shared solutions. Thank you so much from the Municipality of Matera. Thank you very much, Mariella. Thank you for the big work you've done in Matera. I'd like to thank Giuseppe, who's still here with us. Thank you all. I greet you on behalf of the University of Basilicata.
Soon. See you soon in person, because we should be back. I forgot. A great thank, grazie to Maria Pia Falcone and Adriana Crosetto, that were our interpreters today for the Italian speakers, and that did a great job. I'm sure we will work again together. So goodbye everybody, and have a great time in this difficult time. Ciao.
Okay.